So, Greg, you held the Jesus Revolution baptism this weekend at Pirates Cove. What was it like to see 4,500 people get baptized?
Well, it was really overwhelming. We announced this and we expected a good turnout, and we were pretty surprised when 3,800 RSVP'd. And we wondered, will all those people show up? Well, they all showed up and more showed up. And the way we tracked this is we actually gave baptismal certificates to every person who was baptized, and we gave away like 4,300 of those. And then there were at least 200, 300, 400 more that were baptized and didn't get a certificate. We had a line. You have to try to visualize this. If you've seen the Jesus Revolution movie, you remember that kind of rocky background. That's called Pirates Cove. Well, outside of that is a bigger beach, and there's a seawall. There was a line of people a half mile long to get into the cove, because we have one staircase. So we have to take people down, baptize them, send them back up, and have more people come down. And so it's logistically really challenging, but everyone wants to be baptized in this spot where the movie was filmed. And I get it. I was baptized there 50 years ago. It's actually beautiful, very picturesque. And so it was overwhelming. We had to just do it in stages. It took hours. I had an army of pastors and elders out on the water to help me do it. And it was just fantastic. At one point, the line really got slowed down because an older couple, the gentleman was 85 years old, was taking longer to get down the stairs. But when we met him, his story was so amazing because he watched the movie at 85 years old and accepted Jesus into his life. I mean, imagine.
So he was not a believer. He was not a believer before seeing that film.
Not a believer, saw the movie, accepts Christ, and then his family said, we never, ever thought he would come to Christ. And the funny thing, Billy, about this movie is it sneaks up on people. I think people kind of build up a wall when they're going to hear a sermon or a preacher. But, when you watch a movie, you sort of lower your guard. You get emotionally connected to the characters. But, John Irwin and myself, we were very intentional in wanting to get the gospel in the movie, not preaching at them, but presenting it in a way that was understandable. And clearly, people have understood this and have accepted Christ watching it.
Well, yeah, and it was great storytelling, right? That's the thing. It brings you along your story, getting a chance to see how that unfolded, thematically. I think that was the powerful draw in. And then you see the gospel through that in the film. You held this event over the weekend, and it's interesting because a few weeks back, there was another event, a separate event where Christians came together. And I think that one was like 4,100 baptisms, a little over that. That was called the biggest in American history that we know of on record.
Yeah.
This one was bigger than that. This might be the biggest in history in general. It's kind of hard to figure that out definitively, but it seems like that might be the case. What does that feel like to know that because you shared your story in this way through the film, that you were able to hold that kind of event?
Well, it's a funny thing. They say life imitates art. And so first, art imitates life. We have a story. Art presents that story through a film or a book. And in this case, Jesus Revolution. But now life is imitating art. People see the movie, which is based on a true story, and they want that to be their story. I never thought we would have the kind of response to this movie that we've had. And it's going all around the world now, Billy. It's been in the UK, Ireland, Scotland. And I read comments on my social media. People said, we're in a packed out theater in Scotland. And at the end of the movie, people stood and cheered. I thought, wait, what? I thought there was British Reserve there. It really touches people emotionally. I run into people all the time. They want to tell me how they were moved by the movie. And the one thing I hear again and again is, I cried. And I think it touches older people, like people of my generation. We remember. We feel like our story is being told maybe and heard maybe in a way it hasn't been heard in a long time. So I think it's great for an older generation. But what's super cool is it's connecting to a younger generation because they connect more to the younger Greg and characters played by Joel Courtney and Anna Grace Barlow. But the greatest thing of all is not just that people are enjoying a film, but that they want to accept Christ and specifically want to be baptized. I saw a TikTok video of a bunch of young people that watch a movie and literally went down to Pirates Cove Beach like at 2 a.m. and were baptizing each other. Then I heard a story of people that got baptized in a fountain outside of the theater. And then, of course, everyone coming to this event. There were probably 20,000 people there at the beach.
Wow.
And it was insane. But it was,
Well, and it's not an easy area to get, like you were mentioning, it's not an easy area to navigate or to get to. So the fact that that many people came, I'm still stuck on this story about the 85-year-old man. I keep coming back to that in my mind as we're talking here, because I mean, this is a guy who is at the end of his life. I mean, there's an obvious answer there, but I think we need to dig into it, because what does that show us? I think a lot of us, we give up on people, right? We assume they're never going to come around. Why is his story so important for us to kind of look at as believers and recognize, hey, it's never too late?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that the first truth is what you said. It's never too late. Never give up on people. Never stop praying for people. If folks saw the movie, they know the story of my mother. And people have asked me what happened to my mom in real life. Well, my mom was raised in a Christian home. They went to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. But my mom rebelled against God and ran from him for most of her adult life. And literally 6 months before she died, she made a recommitment to Christ. I had the privilege of being with her and praying with her on that day. But, she waited to the end. But don't give up on people. I heard another story. It's a man in our church and his wife. They've been trying to reach his brother and his wife for years. And they were just, we don't want to hear it. We don't want to talk about Jesus. And those people on their own ended up seeing the Jesus Revolution film, accepting Christ, and now they're actively involved in a local church. And so my friend was saying, how is it that all of our efforts to reach them all these years, didn't work and this happened? Well, I think they were sowing the seed and watering the seed, but there's something about this movie that disarms people. And I think, when you go to a movie and you connect, you connect to someone in the movie, there's a lot of people to connect to, that you're sort of on the journey with them. And I think there's power in a personal story. The ultimate power is in the gospel. That's where the ultimate power is. But the personal story, in this case, the story of Greg and Kathy, or Chuck and Lonnie, or young Greg with his mother, or even Chuck and his daughters, all these stories interwoven, people will connect to it, and it opens their heart to the gospel.
Yeah, and you've always been one over the years, getting a chance to interview you and know you. You always have different vehicles, really creative vehicles through books and movies of getting people's attention. Obviously, through the Harvest Crusades and the events as well. You've been really innovative in that way. When it came to this decision to say, okay, we're going to make this movie, you're going to put your story out there. You obviously trust the Irwins, the filmmakers, and you went into it with that. But was it a hard decision, and what sort of convinced you to say, you know what, God, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to open myself up in this different way?
Yeah, 2-word answer, John Irwin. So I just gotten to know John Irwin. This is many years ago. And we went out and had lunch, and he came with a copy of the Jesus Revolution cover from Time Magazine. By the way, Time Magazine just ran a fantastic article on that cover and on our story. It's out there on their website. But so he came with this magazine, Time Magazine, with the psychedelic image of Jesus on the cover and the words Jesus Revolution. He says, I want to make a movie about this. And John was in his late 30s at that point. And he said, someone told me you were there. Well, I was. And I came to Christ. So I told him my story. And I told him the story of Chuck and Lonnie and all the things that were happening. And John came back a number of weeks later with a screenplay. And I was really surprised to see that he had written it around the story of my life, as well as telling Chuck and Lonnie's story and other stories as well woven in. But the screenplay moved me. I was laughing out loud. I was tearing up reading the screenplay. I knew this was going to be good. So immediately I said, I'm all in on this. But I wanted to be more than all in. I was there where we shot it. A lot of it was shot in Alabama, believe it or not. It looks like California, but a lot of it's Alabama because it's more affordable to shoot there. And we also shot at Newport Beach, at Pirates Cove, where a lot of this happened. So it was John, because I'd seen his other films like Woodlawn, I Still Believe, I Can Only Imagine. I think these are great films artistically. See, here's the thing. Billy, I don't like a lot of Christian films that are made. They're too predictable. They're too tidy. They don't, to me, represent real life as it should be represented. I think in Jesus Revolution, we wanted to get the gritty stuff real. There's conflict, resolving conflict, disagreements. We show the old life for what it is, but then we also wanted to show the gospel in its power. And, we don't live in a squeaky clean, sanitized little world. We live in a very difficult, hard world. And I think because Jesus' revolution was willing to tackle issues head on, it has a realism to it that surprises people, including non-believers.
So final question for you, and I agree with you on all of that. What is next? Because I imagine you wouldn't have imagined that you'd have a mass baptism that maybe broke historical records, that you'd have all these things come out of this movie. What's next in the Jesus Revolution sort of series of events here?
Well, the movie continues to go on and touch lives. It's headed to Mexico and Brazil in theaters there. It's being dubbed into Spanish. It's also going to be on Netflix at the end of the month. So that's going to reach a massive audience because, people might hesitate on spending $5 or whatever to rent it because they're thinking, I don't know what this is. But when you're on Netflix and you're thinking, I'll check this out for 10 minutes, I think the movie pulls you in. Honestly, Billy, we don't know. We're trying to keep up with what God is doing. I'd like to say this is all planned and orchestrated. Not at all. It's something that it's kind of blown my mind. So we've done our crusade, we've done our baptism. Now we're looking at ways to take this great tool and resource, this film, and reach more people with it. And we're also talking about more crusades in different cities that have asked us to come. And I have a couple of other films in the works. One documentary that's coming out later in the year called Fame, where I explore the emptiness of fame and interview Alice Cooper and Daryl Strawberry and others. So we've got some things cooking. And also we're exploring a little animation project where I'm taking some of my cartoons and we're animating them, wanting to reach a younger audience. So we've got some things percolating right now. And we'll let people know if they follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I always keep that audience updated on everything we're doing.
Well, yeah, and you had thousands of people at the last crusade, come to the Lord. It's incredible seeing what God is doing. Greg, appreciate you taking the time today, as always.
Thank you, Billy. God bless you.